Season 6 of Doctor Who was another one of those defining seasons, with almost everything changing between the end of Season 6 and the start of Season 7. It was the last season to feature Patrick Troughton as the second Doctor, as well as Fraser Hines and Wendy Padbury as Jamie and Zoe. It was also the last season broadcast completely in black and white, and the last season to have completely missing episodes. There were a total of 44 episodes spread over 7 serials, 2 of which were considered epics. It ran from the 10th of August 1968 and the 21st of June 1969. It is the most complete season of Troughton's run, with only 1 completely missing serial and 7 episodes missing in total. The missing episode from The Invasion has since been animated to complete the serial. The producer during the entirety of this run was Peter Bryant, and the script editors were split between Derek Sherwin and Terence Dix. The Invasion of the first of the epics saw the return of the Brigadier Lethbridge Stewart, who was in charge of a group which would become the mainstay of the future, UNIT, as well as featuring John Benton for the first time. The final serial, The War Games, showed the very first appearance of the Doctor's home planet, even though it was not named, and more of his kind, the Time Lords. The Dominators. The opening serial for Season 6 came in the form of The Dominators, which consisted of 5 25-minute episodes. It was directed by Maurice Barry and produced by Peter Bryant. It was written by Mervyn Haysmith and Henry Lincoln under the pseudonym Norman Ashby. It was written under this pen name as the two felt ill-treated by the production and did not want their names associated with it. The Dominators robots, the Quarks, were played by children from a nearby acting school.
It is possible these creatures may be used as slave labour. Unfortunately, their muscular development seems somewhat limited.
Then they're of no use?
We shall test them.
The TARDIS gang land on a new planet, with the Doctor assuming that they are all in for a nice peaceful holiday, insisting that the people they are visiting are very kind. However, the first thing they hear is a large explosion which leads to a burnt-out shell of a spaceship. With mystery afoot, the Doctor naturally gets involved. When found by the local Dulcians, they are struck to find that the radiation which plagued the land has seemingly disappeared overnight. A Dulcian named Cully explains that there are evil men on the island and have threatened to destroy the TARDIS. The Doctor and Jamie rush out to try and stop them, while Zoe stays back to investigating the disappearing radiation. The rest of the Dulcians do not believe Cully due to his history of crying wolf and his position as a nepotism baby. While making sure the TARDIS is safe, the Doctor and Jamie are kidnapped by the invaders, called the Dominators, who have funky little outfits and sub-robots named the Quarks. They investigate Jamie and find him weak and lacking and assume that Doctor would be the same, so they are kept for slave labour after they carry out an experiment on them. The Doctor and Jamie pretend to be less smart than they are in order to fool the Dominators, which leads to them being released as they are deemed too stupid to be able to do much use. Meanwhile, Zoe and Cully try to convince the Dulcians back on the mainland of the danger, but are rebuffed, so had to return in order to gain more evidence. On their way back, the Doctor and Jamie swap places and they miss each other, with them also trying to convince the governments of the presence of the Dominators. As soon as Zoe and Cully return, the research station is destroyed, with the two trapped under the rubble. They are extracted by the Dominators and are trapped by the Quarks. The Doctor convinces the government that the Dominators are there, but they do not view them as a threat, and therefore will not do anything to help. When they find out about the destruction of the research centre, the Doctor and Jamie rush back to find out what was happening to Zoe. Meanwhile, the remaining Dulcians and Zoe are forced to do manual labour, with Zoe plotting her escape. In their attempt, Cully gets away due to not understanding what is going on, and the Doctor gets captured instead. Zoe and the Doctor are interrogated together, while Jamie and Cully are trapped in an underground bunker and are slowly running out of oxygen. The Doctor agrees to help the Dominators in order to make sure Jamie is safe. Jamie and Cully escape from the bunker and plot to take out as many Quarks as they can. There seems to be discord between the two Dominators, and the Doctor tries to take advantage of that by pitting the two against each other. Finally, all of the prisoners are rescued by Jamie and Cully and returned to the now safe bunker to figure out how to stop the Dominators. The Doctor makes a grenade from a medical kit, and Jamie and Cully use it to destroy 3 Quarks. They are trying to stop the Dominators from drilling underneath the surface, as that will seemingly enjoy the planet they are on. They cannot stop it from above, so the Doctor realises that we'll have to use the depth at which the bunker is at to stop the bomb from being placed. As the bomb falls down the drill shaft, the Doctor catches it and plants it on the Dominator ship. As soon as the ship takes off, the ship explodes, sparking a volcano to erupt and lava to surround the TARDIS.
Because I have seen these Dominators. We were taken aboard their spacecraft. Believe me, they're callous, without pity. Oh, I can't believe it.
In my opinion, there are 3 main stories out of the 7 in this season which don't particularly land as well as the others, and this is one of them. Although I would say that this was probably the best of those 3, and definitely the most memorable, the seemingly repetitiveness of escaping and being captured is not as heavy in this serial, and there is a lot of more teamwork from the main 3 throughout. However, it's still quite a drudge to get through, and the villains are a bit kind of dour and down, and the Quarks aren't really exciting as they're sort of just robots that just mumble around and not really do things. However, the main 3, especially Zoe, contribute to make this serial more enjoyable. It is wonderful seeing Zoe be more chaotic, and for that reason I can get a little bit more behind this serial, even if it's just for the character work. However, the plot and everything around it seems very weak. If there has ever been a serial where it's obvious that they're filming in a quarry, this is definitely it. The robotic Quarks were cute, to be fair, but nowhere near the iconicness of previous villains, something which I believe the other serial in this season also suffers from, and that is the Crotons. The Mind Robber. The Mind Robber is the second serial of Season 6, consisting of 5 25-minute episodes. It was written by Peter Ling, directed by David Maloney, and produced by Peter Bryant, with this being the only televised story that is set in the land of fiction. This is also a special case of using a different actor to portray the same character. Fraser Hines, in episodes 2 and 3, contracted a case of the chickenpox and could not film, so Hamish Wilson replaced him, with the explanation being a trick of the Master, the antagonist of this episode. This is not the more famous Master of Doctor Who, merely a precursor to that when that name was going to be used again in Season 8. This was the last serial to have telesnaps due to the person who took them, John Curra, dying in early 1969. The telesnaps were extremely vital for fans of Doctor Who in the 60s due to the missing episodes. For many episodes, these are the only visual records that remain. Therefore, there are no more telesnaps for the episodes of the invasion or the space pirates that are currently missing.
It's real!
No, it's not real. It's a legend. You mustn't believe in it. You mustn't. Say it doesn't exist. Say it.
It doesn't exist!
Taking off straight from the previous serial, the gang are trapped in the TARDIS, quickly being buried alive in lava. When they try and take off, the TARDIS seems to break down, and the Doctor uses, with quite a bit of force from Jamie, the emergency unit, which moves the TARDIS out of time and space itself, with nothing outside at all. While the Doctor is trying to figure out what happened, Jamie sees his home, Scotland, on the scanner, and Zoe sees her too. Zoe rushes out, and Jamie tries to follow her. They find themselves in a completely nothing world, like a completely blank canvas where they promptly get lost. Meanwhile, the Doctor is trying to fight against an ominous noise that he can hear. Eventually, he overpowers the noise and saves the two, getting back to the TARDIS. Unfortunately, the TARDIS explodes, and our team are thrown apart through the darkness. When Jamie wakes up, he finds himself in a strange forest. He comes across a redcoat, who he tries to kill. This freezes him into a cardboard cutout. Meanwhile, the Doctor meets a strange man from 1699 who is also lost, before the man declares that the Master would not like the Doctor to escape. The man disappears, and the Doctor continues on. He is then accosted by a group of children who demand answers to riddles before they too disappear. The Doctor finds Jamie, but he has to have his face rebuilt. The Doctor messes it up, and Jamie is brought back, albeit looking different. They save Zoe from this strange jar contraption, and then set out to find the TARDIS and find out what's going on. The forest that they are in is actually a forest of letters, arranged in well-known proverbs. They then are caught by giant toy soldiers, leading them into the path of a charging unicorn. The Doctor convinces the rest of the gang that the unicorn is not in fact real and therefore defeats it. The Doctor realises that whoever this Master is, he is trying to challenge their belief in what is real by dropping them into a land of pure fiction. Jamie tries to see another redcoat and attacks, getting turned into a cardboard, and then together Zoe and the Doctor fix his face. Then they find themselves in a maze, being brought closer and closer to the middle of it, but Jamie suddenly disappears. The Doctor and Zoe meet the man the Doctor first saw and realise that he in fact is Gulliver from Gulliver's Travels, which further cements the idea that they are in the land of fiction. They keep going, however, determined to find Jamie. Meanwhile, Jamie meets Rapunzel and uses her hair to climb into a modern room where he finds a stock tipper machine writing what is going on in the world. The Doctor and Zoe come across a superhero, Carcass, from Zoe's time, who she defeats because she knows he is not real. After this, he does whatever Zoe asks, and they use him to break into the same citadel that Jamie is in. They all meet up together, and Jamie shows the Doctor what he has found, which makes him realise what exactly is going on. They confront the Master, who was brought to the land of fiction to be the brain that powers the entire realm, as a prisoner. The Doctor refuses, but almost falls into the trap while trying to stop the Master and the world incomplete. The Doctor and the Master face off in a battle of the imagination, a sequence where all the previous characters come back and fight each other. Jamie and Zoe end up saving the Doctor and pull him into the TARDIS, which reassembles itself as the land of fiction fades into nothingness.
Doctor!
Now, it's all right, Zoe, Oh, come on. If you want to play games, let's get on with it.
For a very, very long time, The Mind Robber was my favourite Second Doctor serial ever, and honestly, it's kind of vying for the top even now. It is one I would say it's the most iconic and unique and interesting takes that Doctor Who has ever really tried to portray, or the kind of direction it's ever gone, and it works around issues and illnesses so well in a way that only really Doctor Who could. The fact that Jamie was replaced by a different actor for 2 episodes because of Fraser Hines being ill really works well, and the story being set in the land of fiction is just fascinating to me. Someone is playing with the Doctor and they're using Jamie to do it, it's using Jamie for the first time to kind of get under the Doctor's skin, and it works. The antagonist being a man called the Master is quite hilarious as well, with obviously the actual Master going on to be one of the most iconic Doctor Who villains in a mere 2 seasons from here. And even though they're not connected, the seeds for the type of character that the Master would be in the years to come are there. The little things are really what make this serial work in total, and it feels like the trio are on a far more even footing than previous Doctor Who teams in a way which I feel hasn't really been replicated since. If you've not seen any black and white Who, this is 100% the place I would recommend to start. It is pretty much standalone and no extra things you need to pick up on. The Invasion. The third serial of Season 6 is the epic story The Invasion, which was the first appearance of the United Nations Intelligence Task Force, or UNIT, reappearances by the Brigadier and a face-off with the Cybermen once more. It consisted of 8 episodes, written by Derek Sherwin, directed by Douglas Camfield. It also introduced Corporal John Benton, who'd be promoted to Sergeant in the next season. Episodes 1 and 4 are currently missing, although they have both been animated in 2006. This was one of the first times that the episode title was changed in order to keep the reveal of the Cybermen a secret. The original title is The Return of the Cybermen. The serial also has the backing and help of the Ministry of Defence for the military scenes, something that would continue for the next few seasons. Both this and The Web of Fear was an ease into what would become the usual format for the subsequent few serials. The director, Douglas Camfield, make an appearance in the first episode as the driver, which brings the TARDIS gang out of the compound. The International Electronics Factory building was in fact the Guinness factory.
How nice to see you again, Doctor.
It's Colonel Lethbridge Stewart.
Brigadier now. I've gone up in the world.
I must admit, this is a long summary, so strap in for this one, boys. The gang are back in the TARDIS after the previous story, and they see a flying missile towards them in the dark side of the moon. They narrowly miss being hit by this missile and land instead in a field in England. They get picked up by a lorry driver who explains that they find themselves inside of a top-secret company compound. They are smuggled through a checkpoint, and after they are safely through, they are offloaded and the driver warns them off. After they get through, the driver is then stopped and shot by the militia set up by the company. The Doctor gets to London and meets a young woman named Isabel, whose uncle, Professor Watkins, is working for International Electronics, the company who owns the compound, but he has been missing for a number of months. The Doctor believes that the Professor can help him fix the TARDIS, so decides to find him while Isabel and Zoe stay behind doing some photography. The Doctor and Jamie just get fobbed off by an automated system, so they decide to break into the company to find him before being trapped by the head of the company, Vaughn. The Doctor believes that he is inhuman and they are released as a mystery unfolds. They both get kidnapped by the company and are forced into a plane. Suddenly, they are in the middle of a military base, headed up by Brigadier Lethbridge Stewart, called Unit. They were set up to investigate strange and unusual things after the events of the Web of Fear. Unit are investigating an international electronics after a number of people have gone missing after entering the building and want the Doctor and Jamie to help. After not hearing from the Doctor and Jamie, Zoe and Isabel enter the company while trying to find them. Zoe destroys the automated machine while laughing in glee. Vaughn captures them and interrogates them to find out what they know. They are taken to a compound in order to blackmail Professor Watkins into doing the work he refuses to carry out. The Doctor, while investigating, also get captured by International Electronics, lured by the screams of Zoe and Isabel. The Brigadier orders a helicopter to follow the Doctor and Jamie just around in case, but Vaughn escapes detection and the Doctor and Jamie are put with Professor Watkins and told to work. The room is bugged, so Vaughn hears all about the Doctor and his adventures before the Doctor builds a scrambler to stop him hearing. Vaughn threatens to hurt Zoe if the Doctor does not tell him everything, but just how luck, they manage to break out of the compound and smuggle themselves into a train carriage to find Zoe and Isabel. They find them, they break them free from where they're being held, and using the helicopter that Unit sent after them, they all escape back to the military base. In order to figure out who Vaughn exactly is working for, after numerous UFO sightings are discovered, the Doctor and Jamie then break back into that International Electronics building, and as they watch, Vaughn's allies are uncovered, the Cybermen. The Doctor and Jamie rush back to the base and put everyone on high alert. The Brigadier tries to rally the army, but finds that his superior is already controlled by Vaughn, so is forced to go over his head directly to Geneva. The Doctor explains that the Cybermen are being put into the sewer system that runs under the International Electronics building. Vaughn, meanwhile, has created a machine which forces emotions onto the Cybermen, forcing it to break down and flee. With this, he believes he has ultimate control over the Cybermen. After being told they cannot do anything to help, Zoe and Isabel decide to go and get some solid proof of the Cybermen themselves, where they take Jamie with them. They come across the Cybermen and flee with the help of Sergeant Benton and other soldiers. The Doctor realises that the machine Watkins built is going to be used by Cybermen to render all human beings under their control. In order to stop this, the Doctor, Zoe and Watkins all begin making as many depolarizers as they physically can to stop this from happening. They manage to make 3 before running out of equipment, and as the Brigadier orders them to be made across Unit, they are out of time. All across of London, a loud noise is held, and people are dropping like flies. The Cybermen invasion has begun. The Brigadier is safe, but half of Unit did not get the equipment in time and have been rendered unconscious. Vaughn believes, however, that all Unit forces are down and tries to re-kidnap Professor Watkins. Jamie and Watkins are hit by bullets but are taken to safety while Vaughn does not understand how they're still awake. The Doctor realises that the only way to save the rest of the world is by directly destroying the main Cyberman ship. They use a missile system on the Russian base. Zoe is in charge of it and successfully calculates the correct trajectory that the missile would need to destroy every single ship in range, something that the operator said was impossible. Meanwhile, the Doctor just waltzes into Vaughn's office to have a little chat with him. He tries to turn Vaughn against the Cybermen, and it is revealed that the Cybermen do not intend to allow him to rule and want to destroy all life with a megabomb. Vaughn realises his mistake and switches sides, destroying the link between the Cybermen ship and the Cybermen on Earth. They travel back to the International Electronics compound where it all started in order to destroy the main cyber circuit, which should destroy all Cybermen on Earth. In the process, Vaughn is killed by the remaining Cybermen. The rocket hits the cyber ship and the bomb is destroyed, saving the day just in the nick of time. The trio return to their field and leave their new friends once more.
Now, continue. Print out continuous integration.
The Invasion is one of the very rare stories I had never watched before starting this adventure, and so I was very much looking forward to it. The introduction of Unit was great, and I loved seeing this extremely early prototype of what was to become a regular mainstay of Doctor Who for many years. Of course, none of this could be complete without the man himself, the Brigadier. He is finally in his correct rank and is wonderful in this early serial, with having the command that worked so well in the later episodes of The Web of Fear. Another favourite of mine was introduced in this serial, Sergeant Benton, who is integral to the unit family of seasons 8 to 10, and even though his part in this was very small, it was wonderful to see a small familiar face in an unfamiliar setting. Zoe, again, excels in this story, first blowing up the computer in the most chaotic and gremlin-like fashion, and then the end where she destroys all the missiles because she just has the brain to do it. It's just brilliant. It is wonderful to see Zoe's brains be put into actual use and for that to work effortlessly. The balance between the trio is again well done, although they are separated for most of the serial. The Doctor and Jamie are a wonderful duo, and as normal they work very well together, so when they are divided into two teams of sort, it is easy to follow and keep track of. This serial does do the annoying thing of getting captured, getting free, getting captured again in the first couple of parts, which is quite annoying, but I can live with that for how common it was in this era, and how it does give us some nice parts, for example blowing up the computer. The Crotons. The Crotons is the fourth serial in the sixth season of Doctor Who. It was the first Doctor Who story to be written by Robert Holmes and would go on to be one of the most iconic contributors of Doctor Who in the Fourth Doctor's era. It consisted of 4 25-minute episodes directed by David Maloney. The Crotons were devised as a replacement for the Daleks after Terry Nation decided to try and pitch a Dalek show. However, they did not nearly have the same amount of iconicness and pretty much failed in that regard.
Oh, what's been happening? I thought that machine was going to shake itself to pieces.
There's no time to explain, Jamie. How are you feeling?
Well,
Good. There's something I want you to do for me.
Oh, not again.
Peter is making some...
The gang arrive on the planet of the Gonds, where as soon as they leave the TARDIS, they find a confused alien be destroyed by energy beams. In order to find out exactly what's going on, they enter a nearby city and describe what they saw to the locals. This shocks them, as they believe they are sending their people through the doorway to help the Crotons, creatures which are close to gods in their culture. One of them have recently gone through, and so the Doctor rushes back to the place to save them from being destroyed. The Gonds explain that the Crotons invaded provided teaching machines to train the Gonds, which the Doctor realises is a form of mental slavery. Some of the younger Gonds try to rebel against the Croton machines, which causes unrest among the city. Zoe and the Doctor get selected to join the Crotons on purpose, and that's where they are held and placed, mentally being tortured. They make their way through the Crotons' base and manage to escape, which shocks the Crotons who are watching from a distance. Meanwhile, Jamie tries to break in to save them, but gets caught by the Crotons, who start the experiment on him instead. Jamie is forced to reveal the truth about Zoe and the Doctor and where they all come from, but in the end attacks a Croton before it can start to attack Zoe and the Doctor, saving them and escaping in the process. Realising that they have been found out, the Crotons plan to leave before the Gonds can rise up and destroy them. Using the machines that the Crotons forced upon them, the remaining Gonds, the Doctor and Zoe, set out to destroy the Crotons with the acid. The machines all melt and the city of the Gonds is safe. The Gonds want to thank the Doctor, but are saddened to find that he has disappeared.
Unless you do as we order, you will be dispersed.
Very well, but that won't help you, will it?
We're wasting time.
Unfortunately, this is the second of the 3 weakest serials for me in this season. I liked it a lot less than the Denominators, and it's just not really enjoyable. It does at points feel as though no one really has the same energy as previous serials, which as a result makes it come across as very weak. As for the Crotons themselves, they really do not stand up well as a comparison to the Daleks. If they wanted another robotic creature for the Doctor to go toe-to-toe with, then the Quarks would have been much better in comparison. Even now, the design of the Crotons do not seem that memorable, and in fact I cannot actually remember what they look like. Anyway, other than the plot, it's a bit bland. It feels a bit messy compared to everything, and which I do find quite strange because Robert Holmes is known for a certain style, which this story does not inhibit at all. Zoe being smarter than the Doctor again is a classic, and who doesn't love that, you know? The Seeds of Death. The fifth serial saw the return of the Ice Warriors in The Seeds of Death. It consisted of 6 episodes written by Brian Hales and Terence Dicks, directed by Michael Ferguson, and produced by Peter Bryant. The first draft of this story was written before Fraser Hines had decided to remain for another season, so it was written for a new companion in mind named Nick. Tim Sticks then rewrote many parts as changing the new companion back to Hines when he decided to stay.
You can't ask me to kill a man just like that.
You dispatched the seeds. In so doing, you destroyed your entire species.
The TARDIS lands in a museum which has exhibitions on the history of space travel and flight, but the crew stumble directly onto the path of a man with a gun. Turns out the man invented the rockets, but his design became obsolete after the invention of the teleportation beam. However, at that moment, a man comes in asking for his help. Communications with the base on the moon has been severed with the destruction of the local TMAT machine, causing them to send a man up in a rocket to fix it. Turned out that the moon base has been taken over by the Ice Warriors, who plan to use it as a jumping-off base to destroy the Earth. The people on the moon base are being killed off slowly after trying to stop them from reaching Earth. The Doctor, Jamie and Zoe volunteer to go up and fix the TMAT system, still unawares that the dangers that await them. The Ice Warriors sabotage the rocket, leaving the gang floating towards the moon without any way of protecting themselves, but one of the men left alive on the station saved them, pulling them in to safety. The Doctor decides that he has to completely destroy the TMAT in order to prevent the Ice Warriors, but gets captured instead, and is forced to sit and watch as they fix it. They send a seed pod through the TMAT, which explodes upon arrival and begins the process of converting Earth into a land perfect for the Ice Warriors. These pods are sent to numerous locations all around the world. Zoe and Jamie save the Doctor and use the TMAT to get back to Earth. Unfortunately, the Ice Warriors have beaten them down, and one tries to take over the local weather station in order to spread the seed pods. The Doctor experiments with the foam coming out of the seed pods and figures out a way of stopping it. Water. All that needs to happen is for the weather station to create rain, so the Doctor and Jamie head there, not knowing where they are, walking straight to where the Ice Warrior is. Zoe is the one who realises this and goes to try and save them. The Doctor distracts the Ice Warriors long enough for Zoe to kill another one and make it rain, destroying any process of the foam has made on Earth. The Doctor returns to the moon base in order to stop the rest of the Ice Warriors, only to be held captive until Jamie bursts in and saves the day. They kill the rest of the Ice Warriors and return to Earth, leaving as quickly as they came.
Well, I could get through.
No, Zoe, you're not going.
Look, I'm smaller than you, and I'd probably be a lot quieter, too.
Look, it's too dangerous anyway.
Well, what other alternative is there?
Well,
she's right. It's the logical thing to do.
Thank you.
The Ice Warriors are back, baby, and they are better than ever. The return of these iconic villains I love so much, and I believe that The Seeds of Death is a far better story on the whole than the original was. It has the added benefit of not having an annoying computer trying to get humans to do everything at once, but also having a new edge of having two base under siege stories happening at once. The moon base, where the first base under siege story takes place, and the Earth weather station, where the second takes place, meaning that the whole serial is split almost in a far more equal way. This reduces the amount of drawn-out dullness that comes from a longer serial, especially in the middle of a season. Although the serial went through numerous iterations, the use of rockets and the moon and that sort of thing was innovative due to the Apollo missions being at the height of its popularity during this season. On the whole, it worked so well for the time it was made and broadcast for, with elements of politics like the previous season on colonialism and technology. In particular, as men were going to reach the moon in April 1969, this came in a perfect timing as with the moon bases and retransporting to Earth, the thought of rockets going out of fashion is almost impossible at that time, and has the debate on whether TMAT transport is actually safe to use, as the man that was in charge of the rockets is actually a skeptic using the TMAT beams. It also has parallels to the story of War of the Worlds by H.G. Wells, with the way that the aliens are defeated in this story. In War of the Worlds, they're defeated by a virus or bacteria that lives on Earth that the Martians can't actually hold, and the whole plan of the Ice Warriors is foiled with a very basic thing that's on Earth: water. 70% of Earth is water, and that's what ends up stopping the Ice Warriors in the track. It's a fascinating serial, and it's just really fun to sit and watch. And of course, the Ice Warriors look fantastic. The Space Pirates. The second last serial of season 6 was The Space Pirates, the last serial to still have missing episodes. Only episode 2 still remains intact, and was made up of 6 25-minute episodes, written by Robert Holmes, directed by Michael Hart, and produced by Peter Bryant, with music from Dudley Simpson. Robert Holmes was attempting to make a Western-like story, through set in space instead. There were many nods to popular TV shows such as Gunsmoke throughout, with the character and archetypes used. The Doctor, Jamie and Zoe took relatively minor roles in this story compared to other serials of the time. As the serial is not animated, I listened to the narration along with the original audio. Due to the next serial being so big, the 6th episode did not have any regular cast in the studio, with the main 3 filming for the War Games. The special effects were influenced by the coverage of the Apollo 11 launch, and for the first time in Doctor Who, space was depicted as starless at short range, which is in fact accurate for how astronauts would see space.
It's coming. Oh, wait a minute, Jamie. Oh, no, you don't. Jamie, no!
As soon as the Doctor, Jamie and Zoe leave the TARDIS, they are attacked by some random folk, which they narrowly avoid dying. Turns out they are in the middle of a space pirate attack. The spaceship that they find themselves to be on breaks apart and they are on the verge of losing life support, with the TARDIS being thrown out into space. A man tries to rescue the trio but shoots Jamie by mistake, thinking that they are pirates themselves. They find themselves in the middle of a political intrigue in a war for material called the Argonite. The man who saves them, Clancy, who is on the run from government officials named Cavan and Madeline, because Clancy was accused of a crime that he in fact did not commit, and therefore has made himself an enemy of the Hermac, even though Madeline is not entirely sure if he is guilty. After going through some numerous escapades, the Doctor and Jamie end up with Clancy as him and Madeline. Turns out Cavan double-crossed Madeline, and the real pirate is him in this situation. Cavan tries to kill the Doctor and Clancy to try and take his ship back over from the pirates, and Jamie and Zoe save the Doctor, though he is very ill, and he realises that Clancy's ship is being remote-controlled in order to be destroyed. So the Doctor and Clancy destroy the remote-controlled unit and gets away before Cavan can properly launch an attack against the ship. Due to the remote control unit being destroyed, Cavan's ship was destroyed instead, and Madeline is arrested due to her unknown involvement with the piracy, while Clancy agrees to reunite the gang with the TARDIS.
You stay right here where you're safe, boy.
Steve, is that what you call this? You want us to stay here?
Yeah, I'm thinking of your own safety.
Why?
Well, we're a mile underground here. This is the old freighter dock.
So, this is 100% my least favourite serial of this entire season, not for any other reason really than it's utterly forgettable. When writing the summary, I could barely remember any of the characters in this conflict, other than perhaps Clancy. The Doctor and Jamie take a far more of a backseat role throughout this story, which does make sense as they were gearing up for the War Games, however it just feels so unconnected from the rest of Doctor Who. The mission to the unknown at least had the Daleks to tie it back down, but this feels like an episode of Star Trek with the Doctor just observing slightly in the background. I also found it rather dull, getting distracted easily, and not really enjoying listening to it. This might also have something to do with the fact that I listened to it and I knew that this was going to be the last missing episode I would have to do this with, which probably didn't help my impatience to get through it. Then, of course, I only had the War Games to go and I was in colour. So many exciting things that did not help my listening to of this serial. There was interesting political commentary here, I think, if you can kind of get past the kind of dullness of it all, with Clancy and the pirates and corruption again of government officials and that sort of thing. And it was interesting to see that shift once of before of the Apollo launch and after the Apollo launch, with this one kind of being after, and you seeing that influence in how it depicted space. So we've kind of moved on from space travel and the frontier to now it's like the Wild West, the new frontier of American kind of thing, and that's how it's portrayed. It's portrayed as the Wild West with Gunsmoke and that sort of thing. So it's an interesting one to look at, but definitely not near my favourites at all. The War Games. The final serial was the second epic of season 6, The War Games. Made up of a whopping 10 episodes, each with 25 minutes, it was written by Terence Dicks and Malcolm Hulke, directed by David Maloney, produced by Derek Sherwin, with music by Dudley Simpkins. It was the last serial to be filmed entirely in black and white, as season 7 would make the switch to colour. The final episode was the last of Troughton's run as the Second Doctor, as well as saying goodbye to Fraser Hines as Jamie McCrimmon and Wendy Padbury as Zoe Heriot. It was the first time that both the Doctor and all of his companions were written out at the same time, with season 7 being a completely blank slate. The Time Lords got their name from this serial, with another of the Doctor's race being the antagonist of the story. Gallifrey, however, was still not named. John Pertwee, who took over the role as the Doctor after Troughton, has not been cast during the filming of this serial, and therefore did not make an appearance at the end, with the Doctor ending on his regeneration. It is also the longest regeneration story, with a total runtime of 4 hours and 10 minutes. Episode 8 was the lowest ever viewed episode until Battlefield in 1989, despite the fact that this was the first mention of the Time Lords, as well as the Doctor being a fugitive who ran away, as well as having stolen the TARDIS. There is one clipped use at the end of episode 10 featuring Jamie attacking a redcoat. This was taken from the Highlander serial, and is today the only surviving clip from that particular story.
Thought you were going to explain everything.
He didn't give me a chance, did he? There's something very strangely wrong here.
Why has that general got it in for us? He seems determined to find us guilty.
Yes, but why?
With this being the longest serial forever, the summary is going to be a mouthful. So, here we go. The gang arrive in what seems to be no man's land during the First World War, where they come across a nurse driving an ambulance to Ypres. When they are first taken behind the lines, they are accused of being spies, while the nurse, Jennifer, and her friend Carstairs both realise they are experiencing rather strange memory loss. While under a highly unethical trial, Zoe and the Doctor are convicted of being spies, while Jamie is found guilty of desertion. The Doctor is set to be executed by firing squad, while Zoe finds that General Smythe of the camp has some weird communication devices far beyond his time in his room. Zoe saves the Doctor, and they escape before he can be shot. Meanwhile, in prison, Jamie stumbles upon a redcoat from the year 1745. Initially hostile, he realises something is not quite right and questions him. All that he remembers is going through some mist and then finding himself in the future war. Jamie and the redcoat escape together, but the redcoat is killed and Jamie is reunited with the Doctor. They are all caught, however, and their new friends Jennifer and Carstairs help them escape using the ambulance. As they drive away from camp and through the mist, they find themselves in a grassy embankment where they are chased by Romans within a chariot. Quickly, they return to their camp in order to escape them. They decide to flee from the British side and go to the German side, but they get accused of being spies there too. Their superior, von Weich, is also controlling this side, in the same way Smythe was the British side. The gang narrowly escape again and wanders with Carstairs before being captured. They find refuge in a barn where a TARDIS-like thing materialises with a whole troop of soldiers coming out of it. Before it can leave, the Doctor and Zoe go in to investigate, with Jamie staying with Jennifer.
What are you going to do to him?
He must stand his trial. You will wait here.
But we want to go with the Doctor! Oh, let us
Now, come on, let us out of this thing!
The soldiers that surround Jamie and Jennifer are in fact from the Civil War, and once again they are accused of being spies. The Doctor and Zoe arrive at what seems to be the headquarters to whatever is going on. Turns out the War Chief is manipulating different wars throughout history in a confined space to allow people to play out their fantasies of being rulers. Jamie and Jennifer escape again and join forces with the Resistance, a small group of people fighting against the War Chief to gain their freedom. They capture von Weich and try to question him. Meanwhile, Zoe is being interrogated by a truth machine, and the Doctor saves Carstairs from being re-brainwashed and redeployed in the front. The War Chief is trying desperately to find the Doctor, realising that he too must be of the same species if he time travels. Von Weich escapes and returns to the base after capturing Jamie, where Jamie is interrogated in much the same way Zoe was, before being threatened by the War Chief to surrender or be killed. However, the Doctor, the little gremlin that he is, escapes by blowing a gas canister up before everyone escapes to nearby war zone, and they all return to the World War I zone. Together, they rally the resistance fighters from all across the different war zones, ready to fight the war chief and the mind control soldiers. In an attempt to stop the war games, the Doctor gets caught and interrogated before the war chief steps in and tries to get the Doctor to help him. The resistance fighters are attacked, but at the last minute are told to stop by the Doctor and rounded up by the war chief. The Doctor is helping the war chief as a trick to try and stop him, but he soon realises that he cannot fix it himself and realises that he will have to call in the big guns, the Time Lords. The war chief begs him to reconsider, but the Doctor knows that as he has to, even it would spell the end of him too. The Time Lords arrive and everyone is returned to their own time zones while the war chief is put on trial. The war chief is found guilty, however the Doctor is then put on trial for stealing the TARDIS, running away, and interfering in many different disasters. Zoe and Jamie's minds are both erased of any memory of the Doctor, and they are forced to return to their homes just before they left it. The Doctor is found guilty, exiled to Earth, and forced to regenerate.
Goodbye, Jamie.
But Doctor, surely we could...
Goodbye, Jamie.
I won't forget you, you know.
I won't forget you. Don't go blundering into too much trouble, will you?
So this serials did have the same issues as the Daleks' Master Plan going into it. It was extremely long, coming in at just over 4 hours, and had the distinction of being one of the most talked about serials in the second Doctor's run. Although with the success of the previous seasons behind me, I set off on the journey through this epoch with a bit of trepidation behind me, because if something's overhyped, I don't really want to get disappointed by the whole thing, you know? I did enjoy the minor characters in this one a lot, because Jennifer and Carstairs were brilliant additions to the main cast and held their characters very well. The first few episodes that were set in World War I zone were kind of like unlike anything I've really seen from Doctor Who before this point, and it was amazing to see how the war was treated in the 60s, a mere 50 years after it had ended, compared to the 100 years since it was now ended, you know? So then, of course, when the mystery starts to become unravelled, it was very exhilarating watching of all the different time zones be teased out. I did feel that by the time it hit episode 7, it was lagging a bit, as Jamie was going through the repetitive cycle of being caught, then being captured, then being caught, and, you know, it was just non-stop. This does annoy me quite a bit, but when this has happened for a good number of episodes before that point, it got very, very tiring very, very quickly. However, it was immediately brought back around with episode 8. For the first time, the Doctor mentions his people as Time Lords and explains too much of the lore that Doctor Who relies on today. The fact that he stole a TARDIS and ran away from his planet, the fact that the Time Lords are looking for him, the fact that he keeps breaking the laws of time in order to help people and so forth. It's a wonderful episode that really works well with the build up to this point, and it makes the following 2 episodes absolutely heartbreaking, like to the core. Although I was sad for the loss of other companions throughout the series so far, I think this was the one that has hit me the most so far. The Doctor's attempts to save Jamie and Zoe from the fate of the Time Lords and his desperation before he realises that he has to call them in and that he cannot escape in time to save his friends is portrayed so well by Patrick Troughton in the last 2 episodes. Zoe and Jamie staying loyal and strong until they are wiped and left behind in the original time zone is horrible, because the Doctor is forced to experience his next regeneration alone and exiled to Earth as a punishment for trying to help other people. It gets to me a lot. It's done really, really well, and the comparison between him and the War Chief is just, oh gosh, it's just such a good serial, and if you have the strength to get through it, I would highly recommend sitting and watching it. I did watch it all in one sitting, which probably wasn't the best way of doing it, and that's probably why I felt episode 7 really dragged a bit, because that was the dip before it got into the exciting last 3 episodes. But for sure, it's a brilliant serial, and I can understand entirely why it was hyped up.
What's happened? What's happened?
The time has come for you to change your appearance, Doctor, and begin your exile.
That, on the whole, leaves us finishing the black and white era, the Troughton era, the original classic Who of the 60s, before next season we go on to colour and John Pertwee. This has been such an interesting perspective, and season 6 for me Although it didn't really reach the same heights as season 5, for example, the characters were just so lovable and just emotional, and it's a real shame to say goodbye to all of them, especially Patrick Troughton, who has got to be one of the best Doctors ever portrayed on television before. His acting is just supreme, and he's just really, really good in this role. Also, after 3 years of seeing Jamie with the Doctor, it's going to be quite weird seeing him without it, but that's fine because he's going to come back eventually and we're going to see him again, and we love that. We love that for him. But yes, thank you for listening, and I hope you will stick around for maybe my second Doctor ranking, which should be coming soon, and also my season 7 video, which also hopefully will be coming soon. Thank you, and see you later. Bye bye.